Welcome to IQD Dinar News, your go-to source for the latest updates on currency exchange rates, revaluation news, and insights into the Iraqi dinar. Stay informed and ahead of the curve with our timely analysis and breaking developments. The significance of elections and their timelines to the impact on monetary reform policies, particularly in the context of currency valuation changes. I can work through this approach for you by examining historical and current perspectives, economic theories, and real-world impacts. Understanding political timelines and currency policies, exploring why elections matter in the context of economic and financial policy, analysis of how political cycles influence policy making, especially monetary policy. Impact of political stability on currency reform. Looking at global examples where election cycles affected monetary reform, like emerging markets or nations undergoing significant financial reform. How political stability, or lack thereof, can encourage or discourage investor confidence and, in turn, impact currency values. The importance of a concluding phase before elections. Why the last days before elections are critical for both political campaigns and policy transparency. How policymakers or elected officials might aim to conclude certain policies to garner public approval or reduce economic uncertainty before new leaders take office. Monetary reform policy's role in economic growth. Exploring what monetary reform entails, focusing on currency revaluation and the economic theories underpinning it. Possible scenarios of monetary reform, devaluation versus revaluation, and how each option impacts citizens, foreign investors, and international relations. Factors concentrating efforts on monetary reform in 2024. Why there is particular focus on monetary reform in 2024. Examining any unique economic pressures, such as post-pandemic inflation, global market shifts, or changes in trade relations that would necessitate such reform. The process and challenges of currency revaluation. Step-by-step breakdown of the revaluation process and potential impacts on both domestic and foreign investors. Discussing how currency revaluation could impact exchange rates, inflation, debt management, and purchasing power for citizens. Global implications of a currency revaluation. Describe the urgency and the atmosphere in the final days leading up to elections. This could involve elaborating on the emotions, high-stakes decisions, and heightened activity that come with election periods. Dive into what's at stake politically, economically, and socially during this time, emphasizing the sense of anticipation, pressure, and the impact on government actions, especially around financial policies. Significance of a 5-day countdown. 5 days might seem short, but during an election cycle, each day can feel momentous. Here, we could discuss how, in these last days, political figures, institutions, and voters alike are more attuned to final campaign promises, debates, and policy clarifications. Explain how decisions are scrutinized intensely, with every statement or policy move potentially influencing voters' final opinions. Draw comparisons to past elections to illustrate how last-minute campaigning or policy discussions swayed outcomes or focused attention on specific issues. Concentration of concluding thoughts and policy announcements. This phrase suggests that the final period before an election becomes a focal point for concluding thoughts. Expand on how political leaders often use this time to summarize, defend, or reinforce their agendas, particularly in high-stakes areas like monetary reform. Here, describe how and why candidates might prioritize policy clarity to reassure constituents or highlight their commitment to economic issues that resonate with the public. Monetary reform policy as a priority. Discuss monetary reform policy itself in detail, explaining what it encompasses. Define it broadly to include aspects such as currency revaluation, inflation control, interest rate adjustments, and financial system stability. Explain why monetary reform might be particularly relevant in 2024, considering current economic pressures like inflation, international market shifts, or any other fiscal challenges that have shaped this year. Impacts of monetary reform on everyday life. Elaborate on how monetary policy reform affects citizens' daily lives, ranging from the value of the currency in their pocket to interest rates, cost of goods, job security, and future savings. This can involve examining both the immediate and long-term impacts of currency valuation changes or inflation adjustments on different demographics within the population. Historical context of monetary reforms preceding elections. Drawing from history, we can discuss instances when governments around the world enacted monetary reforms before or after elections. By doing so, we could reflect on how political motives can influence economic policy decisions. This context would help illustrate the potential influence of election timing on financial policy initiatives and reforms. Global perspective on currency reform and economic stability. Next, discuss how countries handling currency revaluations or monetary reforms have impacted their economies and relationships with global markets. Address the potential effects of a currency reform on trade, foreign exchange rates, and economic relationships with allies or trading partners. Monetary policy as a tool for gaining voter trust. Dive into why a government might focus on monetary reform specifically in an election year. This section can explore how economic stability or the promise of a stable currency can appeal to voters' sense of financial security. Discuss how political leaders might aim to convey responsibility, transparency, and strength in handling monetary policy to earn public trust and, ultimately, votes. How revaluation might affect foreign exchange markets and neighboring economies. The potential effects on international trading partners, foreign reserves, and currency pegs if a country revalues its currency significantly. The role of central banks and government policy in currency reform. Explaining the relationship between central banks and government policy in handling currency issues. How central banks manage expectations, control inflation, and influence currency values during periods of political change. Conclusion. Final thoughts on economic policy and political cycles, reflecting on the intricate balance between political actions, public opinion, and economic health. Summary of the potential consequences of monetary reform and what it could mean for the nation's future economic trajectory. This expansion would provide a comprehensive overview, showing how the days leading to the elections are pivotal for monetary reform, especially underlining the impact these final decisions could have on the broader economic landscape and citizens' lives. Let me know if you'd like me to proceed with this outline or any adjustments. Thanks for tuning in to IQD Dinar News. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates on the Iraqi dinar and global currency trends. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.